I think it's interesting. So it's working. Like right now, it's recording everything. But I don't know why it's not working with. Well, that's where we were, where it said it wasn't coming in. So just it does say Easter, right? Yeah, it says Easter. So I wonder if I can, if I close it again and then restart it. What's that? That's me. Yeah.
It didn't say that.
Oh. So I'm gonna actually do this. I'm gonna be smart about this and just go to I don't know if anyone is actually on this right now, but
where are the lights and Is that one on the road like the whole like people trying? With just that boat?
Amazing.
Sitting on a Tupperware.
Well, perspective.
How are they going to pick up? How are they going to pick up the sound?
like right now it hears everything. Yeah.
So that microphone's going to be wired. Oh, it's just picking up.
It's probably
It's like a sound. Thanks for coming out. You're so good.
It's like go home, get some rest.
Exactly. Exactly.
But thanks for coming.
I'd like to ask everyone to take their seats when we start.
I do have it here. Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Okay, good evening. My name is John Juan Bishop. I'm the chair of the school board. And on behalf of the school board, we'd like to welcome all of you here tonight. Plus, tonight we're trying something new. We're also simulcasting. So welcome to all the people that are watching from wherever you are. Tonight, as we kick off our meeting, the board would first of all like to thank the PTA. The PTA is sponsoring the meeting tonight. In particular, I want to recognize the president, Betsy, and her senior staff. Did a great job for doing this work. And all of the support of St. Paul's. Betsy, thank you, and executive board, thank you. At this time, we'd like to open our meeting with a prayer, so I'd like to invite Eileen Hart, who heads up our Catholic Identity Committee, to lead this prayer.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Blessed are you, Lord God of all creation, for it is from your goodness that we have this day to celebrate on the threshold of the season of Lent. Tomorrow we will fast and abstain from meat. Today we feast. We thank you for the abundance of gifts you shower upon us. We thank you especially for one another as we give you thanks. We are mindful of those who have so much less than we do. As we share these wonderful gifts together, we commit ourselves to greater generosity towards those who need our support. Prepare us for tomorrow, tasting the fullness of what we have today. Let us experience some hunger tomorrow. May our fasting make us more alert, and may it heighten our consciousness so that we may be ready to hear your word and respond to your call. We ask you these graces with our hearts full of delight and stirring with readiness for the journey ahead. We ask them with confidence in the name of Jesus the Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Eileen. And now I'd like to ask Monsignor Rosie to come up and say a few words.
Good evening, and thanks for being here. I appreciate it greatly to have the opportunity just to share a few words before you have the opportunity to hear your school board share some of their thoughts and reflections, their goals and ideas over the year that they're working on, and certainly for the future. May I begin, because I don't often have the opportunity to certainly say that as you your fellow parishioners before you, that they are indeed very dedicated men and women, talented men and women, and certainly myself and Brian are extremely grateful for their willingness to come forward and to to share with us their talents in helping, in aiding, in the partnership that we create with you to provide a wonderful Catholic school education. It's not just one of those committees or groups that get together that is kind of like an honor, somehow the special people here in the parish of St. Paul that they love and care about. Children, your children, they love and care about. Certainly, Brian and I are most thankful for all that they do to really assist us in the day-to-day operation of what is needed in order to succeed with you in this partnership. And as you'll see tonight, certainly there are people who do real work, really do seek real good positive results. And, what tonight really is all about is really the opportunity for you to be able to hear firsthand that reality. I want to thank our board for their service. I also want to say, and I think it's important to say from the very beginning, as a pastor, and part of that is in the diocesan structure of schools as director of the parish school here, that I do believe in Catholic education without a doubt. Not only because I've had the privilege myself of the Catholic school education, but because as pastor, I believe without doubt that the Catholic school ministry brings a certain vitality, life, a real sense of purpose to our mission here as a community of faith. It brings new life, a new sense of urgency, really to make sure that our place that we call our parish community is a place of welcoming, a place of worship, a place of service, a place where people can come and gather, and in that gathering encounter in a very, very real way God. God who desires us, God who loves us, and walks with us to bring us really to appreciate His great desire for us to a part of our life, its joys and even in its struggles. It's important, Catholic school ministry, and it's important to have a Catholic school ministry here. Without doubt, I wanted to share with you, without doubt, my commitment to that. At the same time, I do think that it is always very, very important to recognize that, we're not just, we just don't have a school to have a school. We just don't have a Catholic school to say that we have a Catholic school or we had a Catholic school, or just because it's something that's always been done here. I think that without doubt, what is important is certainly always for the Catholic school to be seen, to be experienced as part of the larger community of faith. I think that means supporting the Catholic school ministry as any ministry is supported here. I also think that is important as well, is that those who benefit, and certainly there are benefits, and it is good benefits of the Catholic school education, are also called to show appreciation for those benefits, for the good things that happen because of people connected through the school in a direct way, or I can use the term indirectly, just through parish participation. Nonetheless, that there is a real partnership that both need to give in order to receive. We are strengthened in our vitality, but that presence of Catholic school families is so important to make sure that vitality is experienced. So it's not just an independent operation, it's a vital link that must always be developed. And certainly, I think, without doubt, it's part of the board's work is really to see that connection. And I don't, as I say that, only speak in terms of finances. Certainly, the reality is we are an institution. We have budgets. We have expenses, we have revenue, as all families do. We call ourselves a family, we experience that as well. But in the very same way, families are much more than just dollar signs and budgets. Families are really about sharing and helping one another, about being present to one another. And I think in a very real way, while it's certainly important to build up that community within the school and to recognize that, to also share that beauty with the rest of the parish. That's what I mean when I'm talking about vitality and sense of life and the real purpose to mission. That's a real gift to be given back as well as other issues of problems. But I think it is a real wonderful partnership, a community that we see. Hopefully as we have opportunities as we do tonight to share, that we can really always have, what do we do to uplift our school community, and in the long run, what do we do to uplift our parish community? Sharing a parent's words, not my own, but one that stuck with me. If for nothing else, our children love to worship with one another, be that at school and also on a Sunday. And it does make church, if I can say, through my own limitations, a little bit more fun, that they get to see me, but that they get to see their friends here as well. I think that is a witness and a gift that you give to our children, their formation, their education, that's irrepeatable, without doubt something very, very special. That's what I'm talking about as well. So I do hope tonight is one of information, one of enthusiasm, certainly one, as we do stand on the verge of Lent, a time of reflection, time of life, and you'll hear me certainly share the uniqueness of what we call this season in the English-speaking world of Lent, which comes to us meaning the word springtime. That we, as we take this half-year look and experience, really get ready for a new life as we prepare to move forward to the conclusion of a good school year, and certainly look forward to next school year as well. So welcome, thanks for being here, and thanks once again to the members of the board.
Thank you, Monsignor. And, I just want to take this time on behalf of the board also to thank Monsignor for all the leadership and support, because he does such a good job for us. Sometimes we take it for granted, but not every school. We talked to some of our contemporaries, and the pastors aren't as engaged. It is just a school, it isn't a parish family. So we want to thank you for all your engagement and support over the years as well. Okay, so why are we here tonight? I mentioned at our first meeting, this is our second annual open meeting. The Diocese of Trenton asked all the schools to do a public accounting of all the stakeholders, where we would get together and tell you where we stand on a number of different issues. So our two times, we do our first one, we come with back to school night. The second time, we always schedule now for the spring. So it's good before the school year really gets started, and then once we're into it. So tonight, we're going to take you through, and first of all, you'll hear some opening remarks, which we're almost done with. But then we're going to get into some actual board committees. We'll present some key issues or initiatives that we're working on right now. But when we structured this meeting, we want to leave a lot more time for questions and answers at the end. So that's why we can start a little earlier. But before we get started, what I'd like to do very quickly is have each board member introduce themselves. And when they introduce themselves, I'd like them to mention not only what committee they have, because everyone on our board is an active member of the committee. But at the same time, I'd also like them to mention very briefly their experiences with, especially leadership roles with Catholic schools, because we have a lot of former PTA presidents here and a lot of good experience. So maybe we can start. Ryan, do you have the microphone? So we'll just start at this end. We only have one board member that couldn't make it tonight, Kate Miller, who heads up our stakeholder engagement committee, but everyone else is there.
My name is Eileen Hart. I'm chairperson of the Catholic Identity Committee. I am a former PTA president. I served 2008 to 2010. I'm currently teaching religion at Notre Dame High School, and I worked at the Chancery in the Office of Catholic Education for 8 years as well.
Good evening. I'm Jay Pelican. I'm the chairman of the Facilities Committee. I've been on the committee for about almost a year now, coming up on a year. In my professional life, I'm a cost estimator for a commercial construction company here in Mercer County.
Good evening, I'm Pat Spitzer. I'm the marketing liaison, and my real background is education. I have a master's in education and quadruple certification in the state of New Jersey. That was my previous life. I've been a parishioner for 40 years, and I've been a volunteer in marketing for 25 years for the hospital and American Diabetes, Boy Scouts, all those kinds of things. So, oh, and I was a Parents Association president in private school.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Holbert. My son went to St. Paul's, and during that time, he's at Notre Dame now. Eileen recruited me to be the next PTA president to follow up on her. And so I did that for 2 years. I'm also involved with Seton Hall University and their alumni board, product of Catholic school education, and a proud supporter.
I'm Laura Sarubi, and I chair the Enrollment Management Committee. My daughter's graduated 3 years ago, 2 years ago now from St. Paul's. They're at Notre Dame, and I am the Director of Enrollment Management there at Notre Dame as well.
I'm Suzanne Everhard. I chair the Finance Committee here on the board. Previously, I recruited Eileen, so I would who then recruited Lisa. I was PTA president for several years prior to that, PTA treasurer. My 3 daughters attended St. Paul's and then graduated from Notre Dame High School as well. 2 graduated from college and one's in college right now. My husband and I have been parishioners at this really wonderful parish for 20 years. I too am a very strong supporter of Catholic education. I think there's so much to be said, and it's changed my life and changed my children's lives.
Hello, I'm Jane Chmalik. I'm the chairman of the academic committee. I have been a parishioner for almost 30 years. My 5 children graduated from St. Paul's, now I have a granddaughter. I served on a number of committees and PTA as the secretary, as the legislative chair, and for about 25 years I was a school nurse at St. Paul's. So I truly do love St. Paul's School.
Hi, I'm Liz Truslow. I chair the Advancement Committee. In my professional life, I work in higher ed advancement. I don't have the resumes that everyone before me seems to have, but I'm a very grateful parent.
Hello, my name is Jason Lesage. I'm a parent of a 4th grader, and I am the Technology Committee chairperson. In my daytime role, I work in higher education, senior IT manager at Princeton University.
So as you can see, we have a pretty diverse board, made up of 11 board members, all volunteers, with 2 ex officio, which is 1 senior and Ryan. And one thing I would want to point out is you probably heard some people mention their current parents. By diocese and bylaws, we're only allowed to have up to 30% representation from the parent community. So most of our representation is from the parish. And we see the interplay of the school and the parish very critical, because we're not just a school and they're not just a parish. We see a lot of mutual benefits by working together. So at this time, I'd like to thank all the board members for all their efforts and time. Okay, so let me jump right into, I guess, the reason why you're here. What is the state of St. Paul's? I'm happy to report that the state of St. Paul's School is very, very good on a number of fronts. There's no surprise, as you probably all know, that Catholic education today is facing a lot of headwinds, a lot of challenges. But hopefully you'll feel as confident as we do that we're well prepared not only for today, challenges in the future after we hear what we have in place. What really guides us on that mission is our strategic plan. Lisa will talk about it a little bit more later on. The strategic plan is a multi-year look forward that includes our vision for the school as well as our aspirations. And then complementing that is every year the board gets together and sets near-term goals for itself. We have it by each committee and we actively monitor it, but that's more short-term to make sure that we're making our progress along that 2-year journey, because every 3 years we revisit the annual plan to make sure it's current. Now there's a couple key areas that we focus on and we manage as a board. And as you can imagine, being a Catholic school, first and foremost is the Catholic identity. It's the reason why we're here. It's the one thread that goes through no matter what we do. And the most important thing is we view the school as a ministry. In fact, it's the largest ministry here, one of the largest ministries here at St. Paul's. And our mission is basically to teach and evangelize the gospel of Jesus Christ, as well as to do it within the Roman Catholic tradition. So, as I mentioned before, we always ask ourselves, how does it tee up with Catholic identity, no matter what we do? From an academic standpoint, yes, we're very proud of all the awards that we win, and a lot of times that's what you hear a lot, but we're a community that welcomes all learners, all types of learners. We're not just looking for the children that are very gifted, but we're looking for children too that, you know, just like most of us, are coming to school every day, have to work a little harder, but they bring their own rich talents to the school, and we want to make sure that we maintain that diversity. Because we see it, our mission is also very important to not only have them increase their knowledge, but at the same time, we're looking for them to develop the wisdom and critical thinking that we feel will serve them very well, not only in their school years, but in the years to come afterwards. And right now, I'd like to just take a second to say, you know, a lot of that success that we experience is through a lot of the hard work of our faculty. And even though I know maybe some are here tonight, some are probably watching, or some couldn't make it because they're home grading papers or doing lesson plans, I just want to take a second and just acknowledge our faculty and staff for the great job they do with all of our kids. Next, as you can imagine, to keep the lights on, finances are important to us. I'm happy to report that right now our financial picture is very, very solid. We actively manage our expenses on a monthly basis, but at the same time, we're not just looking at tuition as our only income source, we're always looking to augment the income through alternate sources of revenue. And even though Liz will not talk tonight about what we're doing in the development area, there's a number of key initiatives we have in place to look for alternative sources of revenue to augment what we're doing and to even bring in the resources to do some additional programs. But we also like to thank all of you for your support of the school, not only by paying your tuition bills, but also through your time and talent that you also give to St. Paul's as well. And when you talk about revenue, one of the key things that we always have to keep in mind is 3/4 of our annual income comes from our enrollment. So this is a key area for the board. This is something that, in fact, we've even spent a little bit more time on in the last 2 years, looking at it not only internally, but externally with some outside resources, because it's not just filling the seats with enrollment, it's once the children are here, it's retention as well. So we have to make sure we deliver. So within the last few years, the board has actively been examining ways to continually improve our processes of recruitment, like I said before, retention. And while our success in enrollment management is shared amongst a lot of different stakeholders, the board, the faculty, staff, the religious, administration, I just want to point out 2 people tonight for a little recognition. First, I want to mention Michelle Cannon. Michelle's on the front lines every day. She's the person who takes the phone calls, gets the initial inquiries, and is the one that helps shepherd the prospective parents through the process here at St. Paul's. So even though Michelle's not here tonight, I want to just thank her for all of her effort and what she she does for the school. So, Michelle, if you're watching, thank you very much. The second person I'd like to acknowledge in this area is a person on the board that we asked to, well, we doubled their pay and we tripled their hours. So double means zero, 0 plus 0. So we asked Pat Zinser about 6 months ago. We said, Pat, we really need somebody to help us project manage this from a board perspective. In addition to her duties, liaisoning with the marketing committee, she's basically taken on another full-time job. So I just want to thank you for all you're doing. From a facility standpoint, as you can imagine, we strive to provide a safe and a very supportive learning environment for our children. But one thing you might not be aware of is that over the last few years, we've reinvested about $800,000 in the infrastructure here at St. Paul's. Everything from a new HVAC system, new lighting, preschool, a number of other improvements to the school. So we're continuing to make sure that we're providing a very supportive environment and an up-to-date environment, especially in the technology area. But in addition to that, and even though, again, Jay won't be presenting tonight, we have an active 3-year plan where we're looking at what capital improvements we have to continue to make. That list changes a little bit from time to time, but it's something that's always on our radar to make sure that we provide some really first-class facilities. Next, communications. And you see 2 things there. It says stakeholder/communication. Because the board feels it's very important and takes very seriously maintaining an ongoing conversation with all of our stakeholders. And those stakeholders involve you as parents, it involves the students, it involves the faculty and staff, it involves the religious, and it involves the community here of Princeton. So we're looking for ways to proactively reach out to you, but more importantly, not only reaching out, but we're also looking to listen to you. So anytime you have concerns, suggestions, by all means, you have avenues through the school with Ryan and the administration, the teachers. By all means, feel free, and we're trying to be very public here tonight, to reach out to us as well. Because we see it very much, as I said before, a conversation, because we're all in it together here in the community. And really, that's been one of the unique strengths that sets Catholic schools apart, that community, because it makes us vibrant, it makes us energetic, it gives us a passion. I'm not saying you might not find that somewhere else, but I know that's what makes us successful here at St. Paul's. So, at this time, I'd like to bring up Ryan Killeen, or I should say Dr. Ryan Killeen. But before I do, I want to thank Ryan too, not only for all you've done, because a lot of what St. Paul's is today is because of the hard work of Ryan and what he has done for us. Ryan, thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you all for joining us. Hopefully our technology is working and many of you are joining us from home. By design, my remarks will be very brief this evening because I really think, along with what John said and what my senior said, is a large part of tonight is really showcasing for all of you exactly the work that our school board does. And I think the way a Catholic school board functions is very different than maybe some other models with which we might be more familiar. All of these folks give a lot of their time and are very actively involved, hands-on in working committees. Every one of these folks, leads the work of the committee that very much has an impact on the day-to-day lives of our kids in the school here. I know some people will ask me, how do you possibly go to so many meetings? I spend a lot of my life in meetings, but because they're not dry meetings, they're very dynamic meetings about passionate people that have such a strong investment in Catholic school and St. Paul's in particular. So it is a beauty to work with all these folks, and I certainly applaud all of them. Thank you so much for what they do to our school. So thank you very much, St. Paul School Board. In particular, I do want to take a moment and recognize John Audition, our chair. He probably anticipated this. I always thank John for his work on the board, but in particular, John is seeing out the end of his term as board chair. And over the decades that he's contributed to St. Paul's School in ways, this is just a transition to another opportunity I'm sure we'll find for him. But certainly we've been so blessed, and I've learned so much from all your wisdom and kind of the model you set for all of us and how to give back to your Catholic school community. So thank you very much, John. And like Monsignor said, I think so much about a Catholic school is the vitality that it brings to our parish. And really, you know, we have the great blessing of we get to be the face of our church to these kids every day. So that's part of what I see as my mission and the call of all of our faculty, that we are forming and bringing in the next generation of our church. And that is such a blessing and such a responsibility, of which, you know, I take it very seriously, and thank you very much. And I think what is a beautiful model to our students and our children is the model of partnership and community that we build amongst the board and amongst the parent community, and in particular that very special cohort of the parent community, the PTA. I know many members of the PTA here in presence, and I get to spend a lot of time with many of you all the time. We're very grateful and blessed to have a really outstanding PTA that hands-on, you know, lives the mission every day, gives 110%, modeled by a great leader in Betsy Thielman, and all of the officers, you know, Janice and Pam and Lisa and all of the chairs that, you know, give 110%. I know we are gearing up for the biggest event PTA has every year, the Shamrock Gala. It's our 30th anniversary, and I think it's so perfect that we transitioned to the gala, because yes, it's an investment raiser, but it's a celebration first and foremost. It is celebrating this great community and building community, coming together, and giving that model to our kids of how passionate we all are about St. Paul's School. I think we have a special guest star from the PTA. Does the puppy want to come forward?
The puppy does want to come forward.
Oh, I totally want
This Shamrock puppy. This is Clover. He's a Havanese. And Havaneses are playful, affectionate, intelligent,
one more time.
companionable, responsible, and gentle.
Oh, don't look at me.
They pack a lot of personality in a small little body. They are hyperallergenic. They do not shed. This is our Havanese Clover.
So, an adorable pup, and thank you, Karen Beach, who's led this incredible year prepping for the Shamrock again. It's going to be the best yet. And we did make sure that Mrs. Dillman sat next to Mr. Dillman so that there was no plotting of getting the puppy.
What?
I'm sorry, I need Bessie's support more than yours. I gotta have her back. So anyway, sorry for a little long. But I will kind of briefly mention a few things. I'm kind of trying not to go into depth because I know some of my colleagues and board chairs are going to go into greater depth, but there's a few things I couldn't help but mention. So certainly Catholic identity first and foremost is how we live our faith every day, how we start each day and end each day, and it's the lens through which we do everything here at St. Paul's. I think for me, what I am trying to really focus on is building faith in action, you know, giving our kids those examples of how to live their faith. I think again, Midwest PTA, that's a great example we give our kids by modeling that, you know, living lives of service and philanthropy, that we're all going to be people needing to give back. And so there's ways to do that on a big scale and a little scale every day. I know requests we've gotten over the years were from parents, well, you know, how do I develop faith in my kids? But maybe there's things I feel like I need to explore, I need to develop. So that was a conscious decision we made to try to build opportunities to engage parents in those discussions. We had a hugely successful event just a few weeks ago on Tap Potential down at Triumph Brewery, where we had Father Gabe Zeitz, the Vicar of Catholic Education, lead us in some discussions, and now we have a whole series coming out through the spring and next year as well. Academics, pressure builds every year, but we have 4 years straight of Scholastic Olympic victories. And it's such a fun, and you know, honestly, one of the things that makes me the most excited about Scholastic Olympics is how excited our kids get about academic victory. You know, we have pep rallies for lots of other things, but the kids get so excited for our successes. And that's such a nice experience for them, such a challenge to them, and certainly such a testament to the work that our teachers do with our children every day. And I always say, although only the 8th grade competes, you know, this is a victory that is 9, soon to be 11 years in the making. You know, every year is building sequentially. And I think the continuity in your academic career in a pre-K-8 school is like no other. You know, it's the kind of transitioning of that positive continuity of really getting to know every single child. And I can say that with complete confidence, that we as a leadership team and all the faculty, we know every child in that school. You go out there at dismissal, and Mrs. Rooney, we all know Mrs. Rooney is every child, but every child, every teacher there can tell you a little something about all the kids, whether it be, oh, Mike has buddies with them, or I saw how sweet they were in the cafeteria, and then that conversation continues, so that from year to year, our teachers will reflect and say, oh, this is what really works best with this student, or this is how we got this class up to the level we want it to be. And so that kind of collaboration and what the devotion that I see in our teachers every day is really to be applauded. So a few other things. We continue to develop this curriculum mapping tools, and they are built on the website, and they're really a great guide to help you see what the year looks like in each academic area by grade level, and see how that fits together. And for us, they've been really essential tools, and they are not things that just live in a section of the website or sit on the shelf. They're tools our teachers use all the time to see how we can tweak them and refine them to make sure that they're best, keeping us all on track to deliver all that content and make sure that everyone's mastering the key skills at each grade level. This year, we've brought in a consultant to do some work with our early childhood program to make sure that we're really having that positive transition from pre-K, especially to second grade. And looking at those developmental milestones and how the teachers are using our common language and strategies in all of those classrooms so that the kids can work up to their optimal level. Continued partnership with Microsoft. So the Microsoft program, having the one-on-one service program in the upper school has been fantastic. I think it's hard to really convey to those of you that maybe don't have an upper school student, how much they are used in the classroom. There's a platform that really keeps the kids organized. It allows each teacher to maintain that communication and really prepare the kids with those technological skills. So that one of the most gratifying pieces for me has been that as our kids have advanced on high school, they've come back telling us stories of how well prepared they were and how easily they were able to adapt these skills to whatever device they use in high school. Because you'll see that whatever school they go to, they're going to use a different device, but they're able to use those same skills and apply them to whatever content they're developing. Project Lead the Way was our new STEM curriculum we rolled out last year. We typically do the bulk of, we do one module a year, grades K to 5. And typically by design, we put that in the spring curriculum. So you'll start hearing a bit more about it now. We try to tie a lot of it into, in March, we kick off with the science fair and family STEM night. That was a great evening last night that we had a really positive response to, so you can come out and join us again. And this year we are ongoing Middle States accreditation. So we have re-accreditation visits every 7 years. We as a school, the Diocese Trent has multiple ways that we are accredited. So all the schools in the diocese also receive accreditation through advanced ed. We as a school and a board made the decision to also maintain Middle States. Because honestly, I think there's, you can never have enough sets of eyes or enough time to reflect. And the best part about the accreditation process is the internal study where we review. And so we've had an internal team, Mr. Carvalhovi leads with the faculty, and you receive surveys in the fall, and so we collaborate to make sure we're really reflecting and not resting on our laurels and making sure that we're stretching too. So the visit will happen in April, so we're finishing up the self-study, and it's really been a very fulfilling process. And last is probably a lot of you may have noticed, I made a concerted effort this year how we can really increase and refine our communication here with all our stakeholders, especially our parents. And I know that we kind of have to be a little more creative today. Example tonight that we are on Zoom, we hope, we believe, and that we're trying some different platforms because we want to meet everybody at the most convenient time. So hopefully I'm not, going to junk mail and filling up your inbox too much with my emails. But for me, I've been a frustrated teacher all these years, so I kind of feel like I get to have a classroom every week and get to kind of tell my story. I'm a long-winded Irishman, so I like to tell stories. But I think that there are really ways that we can hopefully all kind of have a shared conversation. I've been thrilled to start getting more and more requests for topics. The podcast is kind of in its early days, but already we're getting some responses so that we want to respond to what your needs are. So we know that morning coffees aren't going to work for everyone. meals will work for everyone, and there's a time place for everything. So whatever way we can better serve your needs to get a fuller picture of the life of the school, we're certainly committed to doing that. So I know I really went over my time. But I'm going to turn things over now to the rest of our board, and certainly I know we'll have some time for questions and discussion again.
Okay, so we're going to have 5 board members, 5 committee reports, 3 minutes apiece, so it's going to be the lightning round, and then we'll have the floor open for questions and answers. Okay. So first up will be Eileen Hart for Catholic Identity.
Okay, so as Brian mentioned, the Catholic Identity of the school is primary to everything that we do. But our committee really likes to make a very concentrated effort on addressing Catholic identity issues in the context of the bullet items. The first one in particular, supporting the role of the parent as the first educator of the faith of their children. That is not something we made up. That comes from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. That is what the Catholic Church teaches. You are the parents, you are the primary educators of the children in your faith. So our objective when we did our strategic plan and our goals was to see how we might be able to do that better with you and for you. So you saw the Catechism of the Catholic Church, the book come home in the beginning of the school year. That was as a result of some discussions from our committee. The Rosary Project with the Bishop, that too was a project that came out of our Catholic Identity Committee. And we are sending things home to you to try to help you, first of all, to form in your own faith, because you can't give something away that you don't own yourself, and also to help you to, you know, in your work with your children, in your own faith life at home. The second thing, providing students with opportunities and venues to participate in faith formation venues and efforts. That's anything as much as the liturgies that we do in the school year, as well as what happens in the classroom. So we're looking, when we do our planning all year, we're looking at ways that we can incorporate what's being taught in the religion curriculum into our liturgies and faith formation efforts in the school. Providing resources and support for faculty. Last year we created the role of the religion coordinator, whose role was to help all the other faculty in the area of religion and faith formation for themselves as well as for their students. And then lastly, providing and engaging the students, faculty, and parents in the corporal and spiritual works of mercy. This is what Ryan mentioned with faith in action. You know, we don't have the Sisters of Mercy here with us, unfortunately, anymore, but we like to think that their charisms that they brought with them to the school 130 plus years ago still is alive and well. And one of their charisms was to take the faith and go out into the world and bring that faith to others. So we're really trying to take what the kids are learning through the corporal and spiritual works of mercy and making it real and making it something that they are hopefully going to take with them beyond years here at St. Paul's. Thank you.
Next up will be Lisa Holbert to talk about our strategic plan.
Good evening. So the strategic plan, that's something that none of us, you know, when I was here, really realizing there's actually a document that exists that we're all working off of and working towards when we are embarking on this journey of being school parents, administrators, teachers, school board, but there actually is one. And it's something that I would encourage everyone to go and actually take a look at. Because it's a living, breathing document, and it's something that we take very seriously and we are consistently looking at. It actually can be found on the tab on the St. Paul's School website under the About Us section, and it includes our overall mission and the 7 categories, much of which John touched on in the beginning in that circle. But it goes into depth, and so I would encourage everyone to take a look at it. It also highlights the belief statement and values that we work off of, and it reminds us of the profile of the St. Paul School graduate. Ultimately, what are we working towards in building our children and their faith and their academics and them as people? So why did we develop this latest, over time, we've always had strategic plans, but why are we continuing to work on the strategic plan? Like I said, it's a living document, and we developed it so we could have specific goals. As I mentioned, we could take action towards those goals. We review it and analyze it on a continual basis, and we try to bring all the different pieces together to execute actions for those different goals. The last piece is the actual strategic planning committee. So I'm the chairperson for that committee, and what we do is we basically try and work with each individual group of each entity of the strategic plan to help them, support them, guide them when necessary, and review what we're doing on a continual basis. So my message would be take a look at it, and we'll be, obviously 2019 will be here before we know it, just next year, which is pretty amazing. And so we'll be doing a probably more thorough evaluation at that point. But until then, we'll be looking at what we have and then growing upon that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next will be Jane Chanel to talk about academics.
So our main mission of the academic committee is to strive to provide a rigorous and relevant education for all our students. And to fulfill that, we've established goals for ourselves for 2017 to 2018. The first one is to engage students in creative problem solving using STEM. We've developed some strategies to achieve that goal. The first one is the continuation of the Project Lead the Way, the LTW program for K through 5. It is aligned with the Next Generation Science Standards and Common Core State Standards for IOA and math. It's a cross-curricular, hands-on program. So I know y'all will look forward to seeing the projects that your kids bring home. The second strategy we have for our first goal is we adopted new science textbooks for grades 6 to 8. There are STEM projects built into each chapter. 7th and 8th grade are also working on 2 additional STEM projects this year. And then we have their science fair and our family STEM night. Our third strategy was the adoption of the Delta Math program for grades 6 to 8. That's an interactive, individualized, immediate feedback and standard-based online program. The kids really seem to be enjoying that, and teachers are able to focus on what the individual kids need. And then our last strategy, our math groups for grades 1 to 4, which provide hands-on experience in center activities. Children work on math center activities at least once a week in their groups. That does promote collaboration and problem solving. Our second goal is to improve literacy across grades K to 8 by providing tools, instruction, and diversified learning. And our first strategy for that is our Read Aloud program. This is for grades K through 6. The teachers read to the kids daily from a set list of books at a level above their grade level. It's been shown to stretch their listening comprehension, improve fluency, and vocabulary. Our second strategy is sentence diagramming, something that we haven't seen much, but current research has proven that sentence diagramming improves reading comprehension, helps develop language fluency, and sentence structure. So we will be starting a diagramming series for grades 3 to 8 in the near future. And then our third strategy is we are affiliated with Learning Ally for grades K to 8. Students are able to access audio versions of novels and most textbooks to help them develop reading confidence, comprehension, and auditory discrimination skills. And then our third goal is to promote global citizenship and social justice awareness for K-8 students. Our first strategy is our Read to Feed program, which will be starting in the spring. Students will get pledges for reading. The money collected will provide lifestyles for families in impoverished countries. This encourages reading and literacy among the students. It also helps them to realize that their actions make a difference in the lives of others. The second strategy is to have student-centered and student-driven community service projects for grades 7 to 8. Students will be providing resources to work in the community. Service projects, they can do them as an individual, they can do them with a group, or they can do them with their families. And they are encouraged to continue these projects during off-school hours, on weekends and vacations if possible. And then our third strategy is the adoption of good digital citizenship techniques for all our students. So all our students are going to learn how to be good digital citizens, how to use technology safely. We've also established some initiatives for our community. One is to complete the CMTs for all subjects and grades. The second one is to develop a homework philosophy, not a homework protocol, but a homework philosophy. And currently we are evaluating our mental health and social emotional learning curriculum for grades K to 8. During this process, we will determine if and how the curriculum needs to be expanded. We have some continuing projects. Our CMTs, as Ryan mentioned, this is a list of material that's covered yearly for subject and grade level. It serves as an instructional guide for the teachers, also serves as a component for their annual teacher review. CMTs are complete for grades K to 8 in social studies and science. They're complete in math for grades 2 to 8, and that includes pre-algebra and algebra. ILA is being revamped as K2 2 grades have a new curriculum, and that kind of will affect the CMTs along the way. So that is in the process of being revamped, but will be available soon. Technology is also being revamped to include the Surface program. The CMTs are available on the SPS website under the academic and curriculum tab. And they were originally published in 2017, but they are reevaluated. And their other continuing project is our Microsoft service. All students in grades 6 to 8 have individualized devices. The benefits of these are that they can collaborate in groups on groups and class documents. They have access to digital textbooks and supplemental resources. They can submit their assignments in a digital Dropbox. They are able to interact with their classmates and the teacher in off-school hours. And there are numerous opportunities for multimedia and cross-curricular assignments. And lastly, there's some about using their devices. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that our student awards are students probably came home with the first place in the last Olympics in December. We are extremely proud of them, but also very proud of the teachers who have laid the foundation for them from the time we began. So thank you very much.
Okay, next up is Suzanne Everhart to talk about our finances.
I'm going to flip between two slides here because some of this is visual. What I'm trying to help y'all see is what we do with our budget and where the money comes from and where it goes to. So I'm going to go to the second slide first because I think it gives us a little bit of an overview. So we have, of course, revenues and expenses, but what's interesting about this model is it's very similar for many private schools but it's very tuition dependent on the revenue side. So as John said, enrollment times the tuition equals the revenue basically. But importantly, because we are a parish school, and because we are the largest ministry, or one of the largest ministries of St. Paul's School, the second largest contribution to our revenues is from the parish. And I'll tell you how that mathematically fits in. But it's very important, and the parish is committed to doing that. And I sit also on the Parish Finance Council. They're committed to that very large line item because of the importance of Catholic education, developing the faith and continuing the faith. So on the expense side, what we're using this money for, obviously, is educating your children. And the biggest piece of the education is having these wonderful, committed, dedicated teachers, staff, and administration. So that's the largest piece that you see, the 73%. So we are very much focused on using our dollars very judiciously to make sure that they're going to the actual education of the child. Okay? So most of it is with our teachers, and then also, of course, teaching materials and other programs that go along with it. So that's basically where the revenue and the expenses have come from. Now, if you take a look, this is about $2 million budget, and what happens is our expenses slightly exceed our revenue, and because we try to keep the tuition at a very reasonable and accessible price. We also try to, while we have other sources, including our wonderful PTA, and then importantly our endowment and our annual fund, we try to keep these numbers manageable, and so therefore what happens is there's a slight deficit. Okay, so I'll go now back to the other page and I'll explain what it is. So basically the excess of the expenses over the revenues is our deficit. And I'll tell you how we make that up. Okay. So cost per student minus revenues is the deficit. And the school board is responsible for figuring how we're going to cover that. We have to pay all these expenses, how we're going to cover it. And basically the way we cover it is the generosity of our parishioners. It is through the parish subsidy. That is the biggest piece of how we cover that. I told you that was the second largest piece of our income. Again, what we try to do is balance the amount of parish contribution, both relative to the parish's income, which is the Sunday weekly collection along with the Christmas and the Easter collection. We like to balance that so as a percentage, keep it at less than 15% of the parish budget, which is very, which is a level that's set by the diocese as well. There's a pretty broad range, but St. Paul's has been very careful to maintain a very low amount of subsidy, which is very positive both for the parish and for the school. And then, as I just said, the other alternative sources. The key to being able to kind of deal with and better balance changing enrollment that you're going to have, regardless of kids and demographics and other inputs. The way to manage that is to have an increasing number of types of revenue sources, as John was talking about. And importantly, this last year, the annual fund, which is something that a lot of private schools do, and it's raised each year annually, as it says, to augment the budget. And that has been very successful, very well received, and is something that's going to, again, allow us to weather through different ups and downs and changes in the enrollment. Similarly, the endowment has been growing very well through not only obviously some of the positive benefits of the market, but in addition, there's been good collections that we've been able to make through Catholic Schools Week and other solicitations. So our endowment, which is very important that we have that solid base, is growing and is doing well. We do take a small piece. It's important for that endowment to grow, but it's also important for it to be used a little bit to fund annual operations. So about 3% is used every year going into that budget that I just showed you. So that's the story of this school.
And our last presentation tonight will be Jason Lesage, talk about technology.
Jason Sage, and I'm the technology chair. So what is the technology committee? Basically, we're a committee that helps ensure that the school's technology supports the school's objectives and strategies. So what does that mean? Basically means that we maintain the technology strategic plan, which outlines the direction for purchasing and considering technology. This plan is broken up into 4 areas. It ensures reliable and secure systems, ensures teaching and learning excellence, ensures staff expertise and professionalism, as well as cost-effective use of resources. We're also a resource for IT issues, for example, things like infrastructure support and hardware and software training. So what have we done? Most recently, we have conducted a survey of the faculty and staff to determine gaps in technology training. This survey included topics such as troubleshooting Wi-Fi issues or use of the Microsoft products such as Teams and Excel. The survey identified opportunities where teaching excellence through better knowledge of using classroom technology. Because of the survey, we are now in the process of creating ongoing technology training for faculty and staff. Looking ahead, there are opportunities for us to enhance reliability and security of networking systems, such as ensuring Wi-Fi security and network traffic segregation, as well as continuing to develop opportunities for teaching and learning excellence through training, professional development, and opportunities.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, so now we're at the part of the meeting where we're going to open up the floor, even for people that are remote. You could ask a question of any of us.
Nobody has questions online. I just asked if they had any. Okay. Why isn't the vice president getting a raise?
Good evening, everybody. Adrian Sepa, I have 2 children at St. Paul's School. I'm not going to make any questions this week, a comment. I was pleased to be in the first meeting you had last year, and this is the second year. So before I want to thank everyone, I just want to say some of the issues and topics that were spoken. What a big change from last year to this year. So with that, I want to just give everybody a round of applause for seeing that. I noticed that, first of all, I want to thank all the board members, and especially the Chairman John, for all your work, for the direction of the school. I know faith was one of the main topics that we talked last year, and that's so strongly I've seen throughout the whole year. I wanted to thank the leadership of the school, Dr. Kalin and Mr. Carvalhotti, for the direction of the school. I know the curriculum was a big thing we talked about. That's been really, we started immediately with a very action, being placed in the computer, on the websites, and also having the communication opening. All the stories that Dr. Kalin sends, I read them up, and it's very nice to get those emails, having been with your parents and child. It's very educational. I thank you for that. And the curriculum, which is very high expectation for all the students, really seen. I'm very pleased to see that from our child, children that are here. And also, I'd like to thank Monsignor Rossi for his being part of all this movement and this change in the right direction, and for all his patience that he's doing with our children. So I thank you very much. I don't have any questions. I'm very happy with how school has moved in 1 year, and I happen to be a leader in the PS65 in the Bronx, and I know what it takes. So the speed that the school has moved from last year has been really, really fast. So thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. I have 2 children here. One is a 3rd grader and one is a K4. And we're really proud of our 2012 Blue Ribbon status. And I know in 2017, the blue ribbon comes up again. And out of the 50 schools that were nominated, 38 of them were Catholic schools, and some of them were in New Jersey. So I'm trying to find out how we negotiate that and apply for that to update ourselves as a blue ribbon status.
So, as you said, so we can't apply for blue ribbon again for this amount of time because we all fresh data. We made the decision to not pursue it this year, partially because not because of a change in our performance, but because of other initiatives that have ongoing as far as middle states accreditation. We also have been told, the reality is that because only 50 private schools are given out annually, that there are only a very few instances where a school receives a choice in the private sector in particular. So we kind of made the assessment that it might not be the best use of all of our resources to pursue this year. So we have not elected to do so. But we're not ruling it out in the future. The process opens up every year. But right now, we didn't pursue it for this company.
Anybody remotely?
No questions online.
Questions? For my wife to call in. So.
Hi, I'm Jamie Nally. We have 2 children at St. Paul. And I was at the meeting last year and you touched on advancement and the retention. And I know you had mentioned that there was going to be, I guess, a study or someone brought in from the outside. I was just curious if there was an update as to that process or if that's still ongoing and something to talk about later.
Yes, we mentioned last year that we were going to work with an outside consultant to help us with looking at our whole, from start to finish, enrollment and retention program. So we did bring them in. In fact, we just completed a lot of interviews with them, fact-finding, about 2 weeks ago. And we're expecting them to come back in about a month's time frame to give us an assessment of how we're doing in a lot of different areas. And we said, look, we want you to be brutally honest because you don't do one of these studies every year. So we want them to come back, give us a true assessment, as well as what can we do, both in the near term, mid-term, and long term, to do a better job of what we do now in that area.
So I guess, could you explain it? So how was that done? I mean, was it opened up to the parish, specifically the school, or family?
Pat, do you want to, because Pat's project management, she can give you all the great details. But she'll take you through and tell about the interviews and all that kind of stuff. We'll represent it.
Yes, the name of the company is Project Project and Mission. We call it PIM, that's why I'm sorry. So the entire process was that they sent us a list of things that they wanted from us before they even came on campus. Things like our strategic plan, job descriptions of the employees, job descriptions of everyone on the board, mission statements for the board, bylaws for everything, test scores, middle states accreditation, all of that kind of documentation. So we sent that off. Then a consultant came down for a 5-hour visit, and that was a visit with Dr. Colleen, our head of admissions, and myself. And she asked a lot of questions to get an overview of the school. Before she even took a tour, she just wanted to hear for herself. Took a lot of notes, and then she went back. She's from Allentown, and this is a national company. They do only Catholic schools. They are known for high schools, and now they're branching out into the elementary schools. The next step was actually last week. They arrived at 2 o'clock on Wednesday. They had a tour of the school with Dr. Colleen, and then they met with key individuals. They gave us the categories of the individuals that they wanted to talk to. And it was a sampling of all the faculty from pre-K up to upper school. It was leadership positions, naturally the administrators, also our PTA president, and it was committees that directly would impact marketing, enrollment and retention. So that would be marketing, and the chairs, myself, met with them. Trying to think now, it was Laura, John, parents, lots of parents, and we had parents who were current parents, preschool parents, kindergarten, lower school, middle school, a sampling of upper, alumni parents, parents who transferred in from public schools, parents who are really, I want to say more on the traditional side of Catholicism. What am I missing, Ryan? Students, I'm sorry, yes, of course, they wanted to meet with the student council, they wanted to meet with upper school students. They didn't pick the little ones, of course, because that would have been a little strange for the little ones. I can't imagine who, if I had known I was going to have this question, I would have been very prepared. They told me I would not speak tonight, but yeah. Oh, Monsignor, of course, Monsignor, Father Carlo came. I think that was more of a learning experience for him for when he's a pastor. Inside information, don't quote me. Who else? Well, Manchester, Ryan, Salvatore.
Folks from high schools where we sent children.
Oh, yes. Yes, they wanted to actually speak with the head of a high school. So the principal of Notre Dame High School came down and met with her too. So what they do now, they have to go back and read all the documentation. They took copious notes, asked all kinds of questions. As John said, we wanted them to be brutally honest and everything. They found out everything, and it was an open book here. And so now they'll go back and they will analyze it with their research, do their research, analyze it, and then they will make suggestions based on best practices, and they will come back. So it is quite an intensive experience for them and for us. I'm trying to think if I left anything else out. So it's a formalized write-up. And so not everyone could be interviewed, of course, because we were given their schedule. And sometimes they met, two people would meet with administrators, and then one consultant would meet one-on-one with other people. We had a few groups. The children were in groups, of course. And that's pretty much it. It was really an intense 3 days. And they were lovely people, and they were very intelligent, and they had a lot of experience. So we're hopeful that they'll come back and give us some suggestions. But they did tip their hand at times, and they were quite impressed by St. Paul's School of Princeton. So that's it. I don't know if I left anything out. I do. Anyone jump in? Brian? You might want to add something. Okay. Well, the bottom line is, and this isn't unique to St. Paul's School. This is demographics. People are getting married later. They're not having as many children. They're not having children. There are many options for education, especially in the Princeton community. So we're all vying for the same, I hate to say customers, but that's the term that they use. And so what we're looking at is how to make the best possible product. And I'm speaking in business terms because that's how they're looking at it. However, the Catholic faith is critical to, that's first and foremost with us. So what we are coming, it's an enrollment exercise, I guess you could say, for enrollment to see what we can do. Mm-hmm.
So then how much does that mean enrollment is currently down for 2018, currently and going into the new school year?
Well, let me see now. As project manager, I don't have all those things in front of me. I mean, really, I'm project manager to take care of the hidden people is what it was. I was the babysitter. No, not really. No, Ryan has all that, but.
Thank you, Pat. And so, it's a combination of looking at both, driving the new enrollments and retaining our current families, and looking at those two pieces together. So certainly, we are down slightly this year. I would say about 25 kids in total. So we're looking at around 25 kids, 352 kids in the pre-K through 8 right now. For next year, we're only like 2 weeks into the re-registration. We opened up new applications in December, but for that, we're I would say ahead of where we were at this point last year, like 2 weeks in. So that is going well and strong. We've had a lot of interest and engagement. One of the things, we looked at how we keep the communication going with those potential families, more consistently. So even like there's 2 families that, were almost ready to make the move last year, but then for various factors they weren't ready, and now they've already signed up. So I think, keeping those conversations going. Also, one thing that Pat didn't mention is, so we have 2 board members that also do exit interviews with all of the families that leave St. Paul's for whatever variety of reasons. And so those 2 representatives debriefed, all the data they've been able to gather in their one-on-one conversations with former families to make sure that that's all going into the mix as well. So that was definitely part of the process. So overall, it's looking to make sure that we're, strong in all possible areas, that we're attracting families and attracting families for all the right reasons, and that we're a good fit from day one, and that we're able to meet the needs of our families.
Are you finding with the families that you're carrying on conversations with the tuition increasing the 5.5% deterring anyone that's currently looked at the school that could be a new family coming in for the new year?
We haven't had that feedback, to be quite honest. I haven't had much feedback from either existing. I haven't had any feedback from some families about the tuition increase. It's within the range, or the range will fluctuate from year to year. It's probably the higher end of what the typical increase would be, but that hasn't been. But I think one of the things we are doing, and that we've made the conscious decision to do, is to grow the pool of tuition assistance. And we have seen the number of requests and the need level increase significantly over, I'd say, especially over the past 5 to 6 years.
Will there be a cap on the tuition subsidies that are handed out to families and students?
Well, we're
capped at a certain percentage of families that are currently enrolled.
So I'm not sure I understand the question. So how many families receive?
Like for instance, if you have a certain percentage on tuition assistance, we're looking at caps to that tuition assistance. Out of how many people are currently enrolled.
Is it a fixed dollar amount?
So it is that we have a fixed dollar amount that we have to then share among the available families. We do make the decision that when a family comes in needing a certain level of tuition assistance, that we will, do our best to keep that family going through the years, so that our existing families get the dollars first. We also will keep some reserve money for emergencies. We never, would have a family leave here due to a financial crisis. And every year there are families whose circumstances change throughout the year, and we certainly, that's part of our mission. That's really the core of our mission, to support those families. I think we've been able to grow the amount we put against tuition assistance every year, at least gradually. So that we're able to do that. No one gets a full tuition award. And there is a formula that is confidential, but it's based on, and it's done diocesan-wide. So that's why we have the common application that we use, so that we also try to access diocesan dollars first. There's a pool of money the diocese distributes, and so by getting your application in early, our families can be considered for those awards through the diocese, but I would say 90% of the funds are typically awarded here at the school and parish level. You want to ask a question?
Sorry, I have a couple of questions. The first is, I saw on one of the slides that 1.9, just under 2% was scholarship money. Is that financial assistance? And we're calling it scholarship money?
Yes, it's all all need-based awards. There's no merit-based awards.
And then you mentioned that out of the endowment, 3%, which I think is about $30,000, is put back in. Next to that, I think that also said financial assistance. Did it?
Yes, that's right.
So that's an additional $30,000 that goes into it. In addition to that, it's diocese money and parish money, correct?
Yes, and there are also some donations that are directly tied to, so there's the Angels program in particular, so there are some donors that give specifically for tuition assistance.
So is it a large portion of our, I know we have 212 families, is it about a quarter of them that are on financial assistance? And if so, how do we not think that the 5.5% is going to greatly impact the families? Because you guys might not have heard it on our level, but on your level, but on our level, it is a major concern for families that, first of all, are on financial assistance. Second of all, that don't want to be on financial assistance, that are trying to figure out how to go about it without doing that. Yeah.
Well, so it's typically, I would say, it's around 25 to 28 families every year, representing about 35 or more children. And that number has grown slightly over the past few years, but not, significant. Usually like 1 or 2 more requests every year. We certainly factor that into how much we are going to award a family. We try to factor every possible variable into that. Certainly what I would say is I would encourage families to reach out to us and to also make use of the system. I always fear that some families that may be more than eligible to meet the criteria, don't pursue the system of assistance for any number of reasons. So I hope that folks would come forward and ask those questions so that we can make sure that we answer them and respond to them. If we get more requests, we certainly can reevaluate that. I certainly will go to the board and go to Monsignor Joe and say, how are we going to respond to the needs of our families? We have, whenever a family has left saying that it's because of financial need, I have always, asked them to work with us. And some families just don't feel comfortable doing that, and so there will be some that do that, and some will not come forward and share that as a reason. That is a challenge that we try as much as possible. I'm hopeful that maybe we're doing a better job communicating it, and that's part of the reason why the number of requests does increase.
Sorry, I have a couple of questions. So the next one would be, my next question is that I lost it. I'm sorry, Albert.
That's okay, we can come back. Yeah, no problem. Do we have anyone else have a question?
Sorry. My other question regarding the finances is the increase of tuition, so that 5.5%. Where is that being allocated? Is it just going into offset the tuition or offset the expenses, or is it going to specifically help alleviate some of the obligation of what the endowment is used for, as well as what the PTA assessment is?
I think the increase in tuition, the tuition dollars, they basically broadly hit all parts of the budget. So it's not that the increase of 5.5% versus what it may be another year is specifically targeted on one particular need area. I know that we have consciously tried to be cognizant of keeping the PTA contribution. We have lowered its increasing over the past few years, being mindful of the challenges and being sensitive to the work of PTA. I think we're also trying to grow other revenue streams, like we said before, like the annual fund, like being able to take a larger drawdown potentially from the endowment because of its growth, so that those streams can help, fund innovation, but really and new programs and things like that. But really the 5% is not specifically going to impact any one particular area, probably all areas. Yeah. Yes.
One of the things over the years I've been confused about, and I appreciate the chart and whatnot, but the 5.5% tuition increase versus, it seems like we've been stuck at that 8% parish contribution for several years now. I'm trying to understand why that doesn't go more towards 15 in certain years instead of, boom, 5.5, which is well ahead of inflation for the past couple of years at least. It just seems that needle going back and forth. I have an MBA in finance. I I'm still confused as to why that doesn't.
It does actually vary more than that, so I would say it's next week.
It seems like the last 3 years it's been like stuck at around 8, 9. I was just wondering, I know the parish has needs, but I'm just trying to figure out if this is the largest ministry, why that's not more of, to fill and not go into retention areas and retention of, or loss of enrollment, I should say, to try to keep that tuition needle a little bit lower or more reasonable. So that's one of my questions.
It's a combination of the two budgets that you're looking at, and so typical for a lot of Catholic parishes, their income has gone down a little bit, and so that's going to make the subsidy percentage-wise go up. As I said, the diocese has a range for what they like to keep, that subsidy, and so we take a very close look when we set the tuition, and not just the percentage, because the percentage is one thing, but also what it means to each family in terms of the dollar amount. So what are we talking about per annum, per child? So we try to keep it very as reasonable as we possibly can. In light of the fact that what we have to pay for are obviously our teachers and benefits, which are going up, and then some other items that wouldn't necessarily pop into your mind right away. Things like insurance. The insurance that the diocese charges us for the protection, obviously, for our children, that's been going up double digit, year over year. So again, I think the focus has been, let's make sure we get other types of revenues in there and make sure that, especially our advancement group, is tapping as many resources as we have. For example, alumni, former parents, alumni parents, and then parishioners. So I think does that answer?
Well, it does. I just have in my mind's eye, and I grew up in one of the wealthiest parishes in New York City, and we got constant pressure from the archdiocese. They were going to the well constantly.
Yeah.
Tuition was going up.
Yeah.
Because they were getting pressure to keep down how much the parish was giving back to the school. Right. I just get a little bit, my understanding of how that 8% always stays at 8%.
It actually varies, and if you want, I can give you year over year.
So I know it's higher than that now.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. But I would also say that what did happen is although you did see a 8% reported, the board at the time was an automatic 10%, whether it was needed or not. So there was a reserve that was being created so that it was at least 10% of the year. I would right now, there is a financial strain on the parish. If you look, part of that has to do with the reality that giving is just very different today. So, although I will tell you, families registered here is maintained about stable. It probably takes 2 to 3 families sometimes to make up what debts are really part of that. So there's just a whole different giving pattern.
Generational, right?
Generational giving difference. I will also say that there is a significant, and both on the parish level and also within the school community, there's significant numbers, percentage-wise, that really contribute nothing to the parish. A slight increase could easily generate another 100,000 very easily. That's the type of numbers we're talking about. So what I think people are generous, but the idea is not to, as you say, that the archdiocese was going to the rich places. My idea is not to go, because there is very, very generous people, without a doubt.
Yeah, I'm just nervous.
But I'm saying, I think what we're doing is we're really looking to see these are opportunities, and it doesn't take big amounts by a few people. It's a little bit by a lot of people. There are a lot of people, and I could. I don't want to give you the wrong number, but that's what it is. So I can tell you that there's. So 30 families enrolled in the school, parishioners, give less than $100 a year. I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong, but what I am saying is can we just, because, $2 more out of that, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying that there is ways, I think, to look to increase the parish subsidy, but
Parachute has to come
I just
along
get
as well.
I just get nervous with a 5.5 on top of another 5.5. It's going to price the school in a way that
and that's exactly what at the same time, which the other side is as I think as Susanna said many times tonight, important to recognize even in the idea of getting the partners of mission involved. Enrollment is driving things, so and that is I don't use it as an excuse. That is certainly talking to the diocese. I don't think all the schools are affected by this right now. There's a lot of demographics, things that we've also John did an extensive study of the area, so that we recognize that. But part of it is getting the message out, and that's if I can be so bold, I think one of the great ways, and I certainly don't. I find value in when people consulted. Certainly, I was very impressed with the two representatives from Partners of Mission that were here. But I think I always like to think parent to parent is the best free advertisement, and I guess part of what's going to come out of that, because they kind of use the expression of
Low-hanging fruit, yeah.
Sorry. Fine. I knew it was in the air somewhere. But we are doing a lot of great things. But I think one of the certainly areas, and it's a discussion between board, PTA, parent, between how do we empower parents to be able to say good things about the school, or what do we need to really do to make sure that you have that message to share, with your kids, and not just the settlement and stuff. So, I think that's going to be part of it. But I do agree with you, without a doubt. I mean, you don't want to see, the 5. I also, I will say that the other pressure, certainly, to the other side of retention is obviously to retain faculty. So I think we do make a conscious effort to try to, as best we can, make sure that we're at least meeting minimum diocesan guidelines in terms of what we're doing for the faculty. But I also think to try to not just to settle at the minimum, because they do deserve that. So.
We also take a look when we're doing the pricing. We take a look at what the other Catholic schools and private schools are doing. Okay, our cohort, our peer group really is obviously the Catholic schools in terms of pricing. I think we do compete very effectively with the private school. The other thing we look at that's really important is on the expense side. So for instance, the public school spending X dollars per student, we're able to do the same thing or better at, a lower amount. So again, all those are kind of factored in, but we do, I just wanted you to know, because you don't see the background next to the day-to-day, we do take a look at all of these things, including the dollars amount that's going to go out of your pocket, per child per year.
Thank you.
Before we move on to another topic. So, I do want to highlight, though, the contribution being made by the parish every year. So, beyond what the on-record subsidy is, whenever there is need, any gaps are always met by the parish. When we talk about those families, if there is a crisis or an issue, that typically gets written off by the parish, and then parishes, will increase. We also, what can be a risk is we don't ever want to, like what Senior said, impact what we're able to do for our faculty, or impact programming, or impact facilities. So even all the infrastructure improvements we made that John mentioned, we certainly, that was all the front investment was made by the parish. And so we certainly are gradually paying that back. But we can rely on the parish to make sure that we're still able to offer that really high quality program, even if there is a shortfall here or there in some parts of the budget. And we certainly don't ever want to diminish the investment that families make at St. Paul's School and how much of a sacrifice it is for families to provide this education. We want to be able to meet that need wherever it hits. So certainly we don't want anyone ever to feel like that they're being priced out of St. Paul's School. We do follow those guidelines that the diocese sets. So our faculty salary increase and our tuition increases are always within a recommended guideline from the diocese. And the amount of parish revenue and parish subsidy is all dictated by those guidelines. We always try to veer as conservatively as possible to make sure that we're not putting ourselves. We always want to stay ahead of any potential issues. Karen.
I know about a year ago you had an initiative to honor and award a stipend for people bringing in new recruitments to the school. How is that initiative going? How many people have been awarded the stipend? Is it something you're going to continue? Because that's like a grassroots movement to me, and pushing people this way, I think we all here are advocates. It's like that 80-20 rule that we see all the time. The same people are giving, the same people are donating, the same people are out there on the ledge. So we see it even in volunteerism, heading down over the past couple of years. We see it in procurement of donations, not only internally but externally. So the state of affairs is definitely changing, and we need to adapt with it. And how are we going to do that? And I think that's wonderful, the alumni initiative. But my direct response or question is about the stipend being awarded. Has it been effective? And how do we keep that going? What is the amount?
So honestly, we only had one response of a family to that program last year, and it was coupled with a couple families saying they didn't really feel positively about the program, and so we did not continue it for this year. We didn't roll it out again. We haven't offered it again. Not that we couldn't, but based on our feedback, it didn't seem like there was buy-in to that initiative. So we felt, and certainly that's something. Part of this feedback, part of this mission will be, what are recruitment initiatives you can give to your current families, and what do you have to relook at how you do your choice assistance program, or any incentives like that. So right now, it hasn't been continued.
You bring up an interesting question. Why did we do it in the first place?
And why was the money the amount that it was?
Sure. Well, let me take you back 18 months ago. And Monsignor mentioned we did a demographic study because we said, okay, unlike a lot of other schools, we always thought we were a little insulated because when you read about the Trent schools closing and things of that nature, we didn't seem to have those same problems in terms of enrollment. And then, we opened a preschool and we had some thought that, boy, this is a great insurance policy to feed us. And then things were going well, and then we started to notice that not as many kids were coming from the pre-K in the first kindergarten and first grade. And right now, if you look at our enrollment, we're very robust in the upper head. we're looking at the lower half and we're saying, you know what, it's not where we'd like it to be. We're not panicking, we're just trying to get ahead of the curve. So at the time we did a demographic study, and we said, well, what's our total available market? That's as we start talking about business people. And the first thing we thought of, and we looked at the 5 sending districts, Hopewell, Princeton, West Windsor, Lawrence, everywhere. And to nobody's surprise, over the last 12 years, Caucasian births are going down, and pretty quickly. So then, I think if I asked you, who's the next group, demographic group that we could go after? First thing people would say would be the Hispanic population. But when we charted it out, and we got the information from the state of New Jersey, that line's going down too. What's growing up is the Asian population. Now, we're very concerned about how we fill our seats. If we were just interested in filling our seats and discounting the mission, we would just go after everybody and anybody. But we look at who we go after, meaning Christian versus non-Christian. I don't mean that good and bad. I'm just saying, you know what? You can change the complexion of schools, and some schools have gotten into a situation where they're filling seats, and all of a sudden, it's not the same whatever. So we said, okay, we got this demographic data, now what do we do with it? We said, okay, let's get ahead of the curve. So we've studied the Diocese of Seattle, which did a nationwide study of how to address enrollment and retention. Because now we have a sense of urgency. We got to do something. Because it was the fall and we were looking at the spring registration period. So we said, okay, if we're going to do anything wrong, let's be wrong because we tried things and maybe they don't work. So the idea that was in there was try a stipend, because leverage the people you have, maybe just give them that little extra reason to talk to their neighbor or to talk to somebody that asked about St. Paul's. How did we come up with the number? We said, well, if you make it too low, people aren't going to figure out it doesn't make a difference. We didn't want to give away the store. So we said, and then we're also going, hey, we're in this Princeton area, so what kind of made sense? To be honest with you, it was one of those. There was no scientific calculation. And we said, let's give it a shot, because based on how many people we think we're going to take advantage of it, can we afford to do it? And like Brian said, we had like 3 people inquire, and the most serious person didn't even fill out the application. So we said, we tried it, it didn't work, but what did we learn? Because the concern we had, I'll be totally honest with you, was, you do something like that, 12 people are going, wow, they must be in bad shape. But then on the other hand is, if I don't give you enough of incentive to change behaviors, then, so in a way we were damned if you do, damned if you don't. But we didn't want to get caught doing nothing. And of all the other ideas we had, that seemed like the best one we had at the time. Now, looking back and how it performed, we said maybe that's not the best thing to do, even though schools do it across the country. So, but right now we said, we have Tim on board, let's go through that comprehensive best practices and see what makes sense to us.
So how long was that put in place,
That
initiative?
Which one?
The
stipend thing? We announced it at last year's registration, and it went through the whole registration period, and it was really like April when we said, if anybody comes forward, fine, but we're not going to publicize it anymore because it doesn't seem like it's working. So why keep, going to that well when it doesn't make sense? Does that answer your question? Okay. So again, it might not have been the best thing to do in hindsight, but we said, if anything, we felt an urgency to start doing things because we didn't want to miss opportunities. Plus, it gave us a chance to test some things. Everything we try is not going to work.
So you don't feel it was too short-lived of an implementation?
You tell me, because from what we have,
you said it was like a couple months, right?
Well, a good 6 months. We just felt there was not that groundswell, like, where some people, I just didn't get around it. We just weren't, it was radio science. We weren't hearing anything. So that was our judgment.
With your exit data, was there anything that indicated that transportation may have contributed to why people were backing off?
Yes, the busing issue comes up And even us as a board, without the feedback, we say, because my kids came from South Brunswick, and at the time we had a bus. There's no more bus in South Brunswick. And we had like 8 kids on the corner with 1 kid. It's a tricky thing because there's schools like Notre Dame and other schools that have said, you know what, if you build it, they'll come. And it's a substantial investment. And then even the logistics, and Laura can keep me, or you guys can keep me grounded on this one. It's almost like chicken and the egg. Because when you apply to the state or the authorities for buses and the monies, you say, well, how many kids you have? Well, you don't know until you go through the registration process. But you got to do a bus before the registration process. So it's sort of like, do you take a chance and get a bus and hope you fill it because you're going to be on the hook financially, or do you say, what do we do to build demand in those areas so that if we put a bus there, you don't bring a big bus, maybe a small bus. But that is something that we've actively talked about as a board, but the biggest thing is the financial consideration.
Did the change in the monies available this last year make any difference? Is there any conversation about approaching different townships to try to get a bus back, maybe that we had before?
So we continue that process every year. Typically, since I've been here, we've always had busing from Lawrenceville, West Windsor, Plainsboro, and East Windsor. We used to have busing from South Brunswick, and we lost that a few years ago. The challenge can be that, for the most part, you need 54 kids to fill a bus. And you also need the decision by that town that they really want to do. Because at the end of the day, it is a lot easier to even mail home 54 checks than to organize a bus and deal with the contract process and deal with the issues that crop up from time to time. So that can be the challenge. So the fact that they have modestly increased how much they allow for non-public school transportation has helped. And I definitely think that helped keep the busing that we had. But for some of the other towns, and then so with smaller towns, they also need to be able to recruit in jointures. So one thing hit us last year was there were some jointures where smaller towns were able to get their students to travel on another district's bus. But if all the powers that be don't want to work together, then that can be out of our control. There's also in the state by statute, it puts a cap on how much money the districts are allowed to pay. And so they cannot, unfortunately, public schools, whatever so in public schools, there is no cap, it's just whatever needs to be done to transport the children. Whereas in essence, really it's $1 amount per head. That is a lot. So it is a challenge. The availability of drivers is less than every year. The cost of running the buses and the insurance required goes up every year. So it's a challenge. It's going to continue to grow. But on the other side, there are so many towns, I've heard from colleagues at other schools, primarily high schools, that have gone to business of organizing their own busing that have a big financial loss in the part of school. Even if you're charging them to do it, typically don't make up all the costs. So that is something.
So we're really at a turning point in Catholic education, not just in St. Paul's, but back in the day, if you went to K-12 Catholic school, your kids were going there. If you go to the parish, that's where your kids going. And you kind of scoop up all the kids that were around, and there's your first grade class. Nowadays, with our great public schools, with taxes that are astronomical, with other non-public choices, and with more educated parents. No offense to my parents, but they were like, oh, this is what I did, this is what you're going to do. Now, the millennials learn a lot about millennial parents, and it's got to be unique to their each individual child. We as a board are looking at all these changes that are happening. And what we want to do is be proactive. We don't want to be reactive to things when things get bad. We're starting to see shifts in demographics. We're starting to see shifts from where our people are coming from. And going online with our online application a couple years ago, now we're going to get some data. And we need to do some data analytics and see not just where are our students coming from, but where is the interest. If I have interest from a district that parents are starting to come because maybe they don't like their local public school and want to go see what St. Paul's has to offer, we as a board are going to start seeing those numbers. And that's when we can go out and proactively say, let's look at a bus, let's maybe supplement a bus, but we can't go in and we'll put the money in if we see there's going to be return, maybe not in the first year, but maybe in a couple of years we're going to see some improvement. The enrollment management committee was established a year ago to do just that. We have a very healthy school. We have a very supportive parish, and with John and Ryan on senior leadership, we're looking at it more. And I hate to say it, but as a business, it can't just be a little local public school anymore. So we look to the experts here at these tables, but we also look at you as experts in your field. We do what we do, but come to us with your suggestions and with your ideas, because only with that will be better. The first part is just a comment. Back in September, I was one of the parents who was very excited when the Version Belt Initiative started, and students tightening up dress code. I think that was really great until about Christmas, and now we're seeing the students without their belts, without their shirts tucked. So just to keep in mind, that's one component that everybody was really excited to see that change, or at least some of us were really excited to see that change. So, just to keep that in mind. The question that I have, Jane, you mentioned during the second portion of your 3-minute speaking about several programs that I, as a parent, don't know about. And I was very excited to hear them. I didn't catch all of the grades that you were saying that they're for, but it's exciting to see those new programs coming out, or if they are existing programs. But I'm concerned or curious about communications. I know that there's the weekly blogs, listen to it last the podcast. And those things are great as a broad spectrum item, but I think that the communication of hearing what's going on in our classrooms, what's going on in our school, may still not be there if there's these exciting things to grasp the parents' attention. I think that I've opened every single email and listened as attentively as I can, so to hear that there were these things, I'm excited, especially if there are new things that are just rolling out.
That's great feedback here. It's something of which I think we're conscious, and even because I think one of the pieces where it's not as comprehensive is maybe the day-to-day things going on in the classrooms. And so really we've been working with the faculty and trying to figure out how we can improve that. We see it as an area in need of growth. The challenge has been making sure the teachers feel comfortable in coaching how to do it. And I think, they sometimes can underestimate how much information to send home. They may rely on the kids relaying it, but you get bits and pieces of it here or there. I know they sometimes express frustration because we'll have teachers that really robustly try to get things on their website and say, but then every time they talk to parents, they say they hear that they don't go to the website. And then, others might prefer to, send an email, and we're trying to, in a balance, we're trying to meet people where they are to make sure they're comfortable with how to best communicate, but then try to build more consistency so that you're getting an equal amount of information from all your children's teachers. So we have some more work and effort we're trying to do. Things pop up all the time. We just talked with the teachers recently about, I've got some feedback over the past few weeks that there were specialty teachers that work in the classroom or do some pull-out or in-class programming where they co-teach, and that it wasn't that parents didn't really know about that. And they say, well, I told everybody back to school night. I said, well, you tell people 5 million things about school night, so you have to kind of refresh that and talk about that. And so, I want to mention that, Mrs. Les is coming in to co-teach writing 2 days a week, or Mrs. Elfeld is doing the math enrichment twice a week. And how does that program work, and how do we rotate kids through that? So I think, unfortunately, sometimes when the teachers are so close to it, they don't realize how much they need to do. So I agree. It's something we're trying our best to work on, but it has been a slower than hoped for process.
And just to add to that, because I know my son recently was talking about a program, and it was kind of funny because he said, "Oh, I met with such and such a teacher," and I said, "Well, I didn't know that." He goes, "Well, I thought it was one of those kind of." He thought the teacher told me
I think the teacher expected him to tell me, so it was one of those moments of like, oh, well, it's great news, it's a good thing. But yeah, I guess the other thing to what you were saying is, I do find over the years, I think it's great that the teachers are using the portal. It's really, really helpful. But I've noticed that they all use it differently, which makes sense. But there are some that do make it easier to read. So I don't know if maybe among the teachers, the best practices, I think there are some you can tell are clearly more comfortable using the portal, and some where it's like, yeah, I mean, some are very, it's really easy to look and say, here's what your child's doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And you're like, boom, done, got it. And then others, it's more prose. Some it's, a little more, and I think especially as our children, and I don't have an upper school student yet, I know they're juggling kind of the third and fourth and fifth with, sometimes it's hard to keep up because you're not sure, you have a primary teacher, but they have certain classes here, don't pay attention to this part, read me for ILA, math, and what, but don't look at my science because you have this. So I think sometimes that also becomes a little tricky, how they're communicating, especially when you're trying to juggle multiple teachers. So I don't know, feedback for when the teachers get together and maybe there's like a best practice or something.
For the sake of stepping maybe on your toes on this one, just from a board perspective, the two things I want to mention is we used to have a committee called administration. We changed it to stakeholder engagement deliberately. And unfortunately, Kate's not here. But her main focus is engaging communication, because we saw as a board that we said, hey, we have areas we can improve in, so we're taking it very seriously. The other thing about the website, you can ask any board member, how many times Ryan's asked at board meetings, are teachers using the website? And we're evolving it because it's not one size fits all, because you guys have other programs that teachers can use or other avenues. But we are actively involved because we think it's critical, but we want to do it smart too, because we're hearing maybe upper grades, there's another program you guys can use that would be more effective. But the other part of it too is when Ryan does his annual performance appraisals and sit downs, that's part of the conversation. So this is not something like, can you please do this for us? This is something that the board sees as very important, and it's very much top of mind with us. And Ryan can tell you how many times we've asked him about it. So maybe the execution isn't there yet, but we're still knocking on the door to get it to that place where people feel, okay, it's working now.
Thanks. And just to build on one more comment, I think one of the goals of the technology survey with the faculty was partially figuring out where are their gaps in skill set and how can they also work together in teams and in collaboration, so that we've made the decision that for the most part whole group tech training for teachers doesn't make sense because they're not going to be using technology the same way and they're all coming from a different skill set. And so doing more targeted focusing for them on what's going to work well for them. Even looking at social media. So are teachers comfortable having a classroom Twitter account? Will that make sense? The balance can be that, but then we also want to make sure that we don't, like I said, make things too different in one grade than another. So you don't want to have to be like my third grader I get a tweet from, and my second grader I get an email from. But are there ways that we can more easily kind of integrate that into what they're doing? So it is definitely an area that's in. So the stakeholder engagement committee is just getting reformulated after the transition out of administration. So we are, we're recruiting members, and we're looking to get that off the board. Kate, like John said, couldn't be here tonight, but we'll take that feedback to her.
Is there any questions from the remote? Okay. Well, we want to be conscious of time, but tonight, well, first and foremost, thank you for coming. And thank you for viewing, if you're viewing through simulcast. This is part of communication tonight, and this is all good stuff, and we welcome it. The other thing is, in addition to just you coming tonight, we want to thank you as parents. Again, the ones that are here tonight and the ones that are viewing, because you're the ones that make it special. We're just here to help, and we appreciate the trust that you put in us. And two other quick thoughts. One is, You heard a lot about the board members and their backgrounds and stuff like that. But we have a ton of committees that these people coordinate that we welcome your participation because you bring a lot of talents. And you know what? We all started, no matter what the resume says, we all started as a parent with no experience. So just start the journey, and that's what we encourage people to do. You'll be surprised at what you can provide and the value you can provide to the whole process. So we encourage all of you, if you have any interest whatsoever, seek us out. And speaking of seeking us out, we'll be here afterward. So if you want to talk to us more or answer any questions, we'll be here. And before I sign off, I just want to thank Mr. C for managing all the details with the simulcast and everything he did for us tonight. So thank you, and thank you again. Have a good night.